At dinner, she laughed. "You're lucky I settled for you. My ex would take me back anytime." Everyone laughed, but me. 2 days later, she opened her wallet to find the joint cards gone and a note waiting. "Go get him then. Marriage is built on respect." That's what my father told me when I asked him the secret to his and mom's 42-year relationship. "You can overcome almost anything if the respect is there," he said. "Without it, you've got nothing." I thought I understood what he meant. Turns out, I had to learn it the hard way. I met Claire 7 years ago at a friend's New Year's party. She was stunning in that effortless way. Smart, confident, with a sharp wit that could cut glass. I was immediately drawn to her. We dated for 2 years before I proposed, and we've been married for just over 5 years now. Claire had been in a relationship with a guy named Mark before we met. They dated through college and for a couple of years after. According to Claire, they'd broken up because he wasn't ready to commit and she was. Mark had gone to work overseas after their breakup. And that was that. Or so I thought. For the most part, our marriage has been good. We both have solid careers. I run my own consulting business, and she's a marketing director at a major corporation. We bought a house 3 years ago, travel regularly, and generally enjoy our life together. Sure, we've had our rough patches, but what couple doesn't? The incident happened 3 weeks ago. We were hosting a dinner party for Claire's birthday. 8 guests, including her sister Emma, her brother-in-law, and some close friends. The evening was going well. Good food, plenty of wine, lots of laughter. We were in the middle of dessert when the conversation turned to relationships. Emma was telling a story about a disastrous blind date she'd been on before meeting her husband. Everyone was sharing their dating horror stories, and the wine was flowing freely. "Remember Mark?" Claire's friend Tasha asked her, grinning. "Didn't he try to get back with you right before you met Rob?" Claire nodded, her cheeks flushed from wine. "Oh God, yes. He suddenly realized what he'd lost and came crawling back. But you were already with Rob by then, right?" Someone else asked. Claire hesitated. "Well, we had just started dating. Nothing serious yet." I frowned slightly. This was news to me. Claire had never mentioned Mark trying to reconcile. "Didn't he move back from London just for you?" Emma asked. Claire shrugged, taking another sip of wine. "He says that's why he came back." The conversation might have moved on, but then Tasha said, "I saw on Instagram he's single again. Still looking good too." That's when it happened. Claire looked across the table at me, a strange smirk on her face. "You're lucky I settled for you," she said with a laugh. "I could have had Mark back any time." Everyone laughed. Everyone except me. I just smiled politely and excused myself to get coffee from the kitchen. As I stood there waiting for the coffee to brew, I replayed her words in my head. Settled for you. Not chose you. Or fell in love with you. Settled. Like I was the consolation prize. The backup plan. When I returned with the coffee, the conversation had moved on. Claire was animated, telling a story about a work event, seemingly oblivious to the bomb she'd just dropped. I went through the motions for the rest of the evening, smiling, pouring drinks, playing the good host. But inside, something had shifted. After our guests left, Claire was tipsy and affectionate, apparently having forgotten her comment entirely. She tried to initiate intimacy, but I begged off, claiming I was tired from hosting. She fell asleep almost immediately, while I lay awake beside her, thinking. The next morning, Claire had a hangover and no memory of her settled for you comment. I didn't bring it up. I needed time to process, to figure out if this was just a thoughtless drunk remark or something more revealing. I spent the day going about my usual routine, but my mind kept returning to her words, to the casual way she'd said them, to the fact that she'd never told me about Mark trying to get back with her when we first started dating. That night, I checked our phone records online, something I'd never done before. What I found sent a chill through me. Regular calls to a number I didn't recognize, always during her lunch break, or when she knew I'd be busy with clients. The calls had been happening for months. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I did some digging. The number belonged to Mark. He hadn't moved back overseas, as Claire had led me to believe. He was living just 30 minutes away, working for a competing firm in the same industry as Claire. A cold sense of clarity washed over me. This wasn't just about a thoughtless comment at a dinner party. This was about respect, or rather, the lack of it. I spent the next day making preparations. Claire and I had joint accounts for household expenses, but we'd maintained separate accounts for our personal spending and savings. My business had its own accounts, of course. Claire had her own personal cell phone plan in her name. though we split the bill as part of our monthly budget. We'd set things up this way at the beginning of our marriage because it made sense for our financial situation. Now, I was grateful for the separation. I called my lawyer first, then my accountant. I explained the situation and asked for advice on protecting my assets while I figured out my next steps. Both advised caution and discretion. I decided on a measured approach. I removed Claire's credit cards from our joint household account and transferred them to her personal account instead. This wouldn't leave her without access to funds. She had her own money and cards linked to her personal account, but it would send a clear message that our financial entanglement was changing. I also removed my automatic contribution to our shared household account, transferring my portion of our monthly expenses to my personal account instead. That evening, Claire texted me, saying she'd tried to buy groceries with the joint account card, and it had been declined. I replied that I'd handle it when I got home. When I arrived, she was frustrated. My card was declined at the grocery store, she said. I had to use my personal card. What's going on with our joint account? I removed your cards from the joint account, I said calmly. I've also stopped my monthly transfers into it. She stared at me, bewildered. You did what? Why would you do that without talking to me first? Do you remember what you said at the dinner party? About settling for me? About how you could have Mark back anytime? Her face fell. I said that? Rob, I was drunk. You know I didn't mean anything by it. I might have believed that, I said, if I hadn't found out about the calls. Color drained from her face. What calls? The ones to Mark. Multiple times a week. For months. Always when you knew I wouldn't be around. She sank into a chair. It's not what you think. We're just friends. Friends you hide from your husband? Friends you lie about? You told me he moved back overseas. I didn't want you to get the wrong idea. And what idea would that be, Claire? That my wife is maintaining a secret relationship with an ex she once considered choosing over me? She started crying, insisting there was nothing physical between them, that they were just close friends who understood each other. Then I was overreacting. I left you a note, I told her. It's on your dresser. She went upstairs and returned with the envelope I'd left. Inside was a handwritten letter. Claire, I've removed your cards from our joint account and stopped my monthly contributions to it. Your personal accounts remain untouched, so you still have access to your own money. You said I was lucky you settled for me and that you could have Mark back anytime. I've been thinking about that statement a lot. I don't want someone who settled for me. I want someone who chooses me every day, the way I chose you. So here's your chance. Go get him then. I'll be staying at the lake house for a few days while you decide what you want. If it's Mark, I won't stand in your way. If it's our marriage, we have a lot to discuss. She looked up from the letter, tears streaming down her face. This is insane. You can't just change our financial arrangements because of one stupid comment and some friendly calls. I'm not cutting you off from money, I said. You have your own income and accounts. I'm just separating my finances until we figure this out. It's about respect, Claire. It's about honesty. It's about whether I'm your choice or your fallback plan. Of course you're my choice. I married you, didn't I? Yes, but now I'm wondering if that was because Mark wasn't available, not because I was who you really wanted. She tried to argue more, to explain away the calls, the common lies about Mark's location. But the damage was done. The trust was broken. I packed a bag and left for our lake house, a small property I'd inherited from my grandparents that we used for weekend getaways. The first night alone was the hardest. I questioned everything. My decision, our marriage, my own worth. Had I overreacted? Was I being too harsh? But then I'd remember her words, the casual cruelty of them, and the secretive calls, and I knew I'd done what I needed to do. The next day, I received a text from Claire. Please come home so we can talk about this like adults. This feels like punishment rather than problem solving. I didn't respond. This wasn't about punishing Claire. It was about giving both of us space to evaluate what we really wanted. On the second day, Claire called. I'm coming to the lake house, she said when I answered. We need to talk in person. I'm not ready for that, I told her. I need more time. How much time does it take to decide if you want to throw away a 5-year marriage over a stupid drunk comment? This isn't just about the comment, Claire. It's about the secrecy, the lies, the fact that you've been in regular contact with an ex you clearly still have feelings for. I don't have feelings for him. Then why hide it? Why lie about where he lives? Why call him when you know I won't find out? She had no good answer for that. I stayed at the lake house for 4 days, using the time to reflect on our marriage. I realized there had been other signs of disrespect that I'd overlooked or excused. Subtle put-downs disguised as jokes. Dismissive comments about my business when talking to her corporate friends. Small lies about where she'd been or who she'd been with. When I finally returned home, Claire had prepared a full apology dinner. She'd cleaned the house, bought my favorite wine, cooked my favorite meal. She looked relieved when I walked in the door. "I was afraid you weren't coming back," she said. "I almost didn't," I admitted. Over dinner, she apologized profusely. She showed me her call log, with no recent calls to mark. She swore nothing physical had ever happened between them, that the calls were just friendly catch-ups that she'd hidden because she knew I'd misinterpret them. "I've deleted his number," she said. "I've blocked him on all social media. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. The thing is, Claire, I'm not sure it can be fixed. Once respect is gone, what's left? Love," she said immediately. "Commitment. History. All the good parts of our life together. But without respect, those things wither. And right now, I don't feel respected." She promised to change, to prove her respect for me, to rebuild the trust she'd broken. I agreed to try marriage counseling. It was a start, but not a solution. That was 3 weeks ago. We've had 2 counseling sessions so far. The therapist has helped us communicate better, but the underlying issues remain. Claire thinks I'm making too much of a drunken comment and some innocent phone calls. I think she's minimizing a serious breach of trust. I've moved back into our house, but I'm sleeping in the guest room. I'm civil, even friendly at times. But the emotional distance remains. Claire oscillates between remorse and resentment, between trying to win me back and accusing me of overreacting. Last night, she came to the guest room after a glass of wine and asked if I was ever going to forgive her. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I'm trying. What can I do to make this right?" She asked, tears in her eyes. "I don't think it's about doing something specific," I told her. "It's about understanding why what happened was so damaging and changing the patterns that led to it." She nodded slowly. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said about respect. I never realized how some of my comments must have sounded to you. I thought I was just teasing." It was the first time she'd acknowledged the broader pattern, not just the specific incident. "Would you consider moving back to our bedroom?" she asked. "Not yet," I said. "I need more time." She accepted that answer without argument, which itself felt like progress. "I don't know if our marriage will survive this. The trust is deeply damaged, and rebuilding it will take time and consistent effort from both of us. But for the first time in weeks, I feel like there's a possibility. What I do know is that I'll never again ignore the importance of mutual respect in a relationship. As my father said, without it, you've got nothing, and I deserve more than nothing. I deserve a partner who chooses me every day, who respects me completely, who would never, drunk or sober, suggest that she settled for me. Whatever happens with Claire, I've found my own self-respect again. And that, at least, is something worth holding on to." Update: 3 months later. It's been 3 months since the dinner party incident, and several people have asked for an update, so here it is. Claire and I are still together, but our marriage has changed significantly. We've continued with counseling, weekly sessions that have been difficult but necessary. Through this process, several truths have emerged. First, Claire's relationship with Mark was more complicated than she initially admitted. While she maintains nothing physical happened, she eventually confessed that their conversations often veered into emotional territory that crossed boundaries. They reminisced about their past, complained about their present, and occasionally speculated about what-if scenarios. Not quite an emotional affair, but dancing right along the edge. Second, my reaction, removing her cards from our joint account, while less extreme than what some might have done, still came from a place of hurt rather than healthy communication. Our therapist pointed out that making unilateral financial decisions, even when legally within my rights, wasn't a constructive way to address relationship problems. I've acknowledged this, and we've since worked on better ways to communicate when feeling hurt or disrespected. The most significant revelation came during our 6th counseling session. When pressed about why she maintained secret contact with Mark, Claire finally broke down and admitted something she'd never told me. Mark had left her to take a job overseas, not the other way around, as she'd always claimed. He had returned to the States about 2 years ago and reached out to her. Her, "I could have him back anytime" comment wasn't just disrespectful. It was a lie she told herself to protect her ego from the rejection she'd experienced years ago. This explained a lot about our relationship dynamic. Claire had been carrying this wound of rejection, trying to convince herself and others that she had been the one in control all along. My reaction to her dinner party comment had inadvertently exposed this vulnerability, which is partly why she responded with such defensiveness. Understanding this hasn't automatically fixed our problems, but it has changed how we approach them. Claire has started individual therapy in addition to our couples sessions, working through her issues with rejection and her tendency to use subtle put-downs as a defense mechanism. As for me, I've moved back into our bedroom, but intimacy is still a work in progress. Trust rebuilds slowly. We've established open phone policies by mutual agreement, not constant checking, but transparency about communications. She's been forthcoming about her interactions and whereabouts, not out of obligation, but as a genuine effort to rebuild trust. We've also established clearer boundaries around how we speak to and about each other, both in private and in public. No more jokes at the other's expense. No more minimizing each other's concerns. No more secrets. The most encouraging sign came last weekend when Claire's company had their annual dinner. As we were getting ready, she said, "You know, I'm really lucky to have you." Then she caught herself and added, "Not lucky like I settled, lucky like I got exactly what I wanted and needed, even if I didn't always know it." It was a small moment, but it felt significant, evidence that she's becoming more mindful of her words and their impact. Are we completely healed? No, there are still difficult days, moments of doubt, old patterns that try to reassert themselves. The counselor has told us that rebuilding trust after this kind of breach typically takes 1 to 2 years of consistent work, not just 3 months. We're still in the early stages, and we both recognize that, but we're both committed to the process of rebuilding. And for now, that's enough to keep moving forward. We've restored our joint financial arrangements, though with more transparency and communication than before. The biggest lesson I've learned through all this is that respect isn't just about big betrayals or obvious insults. It's in the small, everyday interactions, the words we choose, the boundaries we maintain, the truths we tell or withhold. And rebuilding it requires the same attention to detail, the same daily commitment. I don't know if Claire and I will make it in the long run, but I do know that whatever happens, I'll never again compromise on the fundamental need for mutual respect in a relationship. Some lessons once learned can't be unlearned. And for that, at least I'm grateful.